Hello and welcome to the ninth episode of the Comic Book Network. I'm your host Ian, and today we're going to be talking about Daredevil without my co-host Ethan. As you might know, we had a bit of legal trouble after yesterday, or last week's rather, episode of the Comic Book Network, as AT&T did indeed fire me. However, in a strange twist of events, I was fired and sent to another podcast called, coincidentally, The Comic Book Network, whereas Ethan stayed behind and he was forced to work at a labor camp. And I know what you're thinking. That sounds brutal. That sounds terrible. But trust me, he very much enjoys going into labor. That's not what I meant. Okay, moving on to our topic today, which is Daredevil Season 2. And I binge-watched this all day yesterday, and I gotta tell you, I am tired. I am about to fall asleep on a bed of chains. Just to make you all aware, this episode is going to be full of spoilers, so if you do not want to hear those, you might want to skip to, let's say, 15 minutes in, where I will start talking about my reads of the week, and then the question of the week, and we can wrap it up from there. But if you want to avoid these spoilers, haven't seen the season yet, please feel free to skip right about now. Alright, now that just warning has been given, I've got to say how much I loved this season. It was so much better than the first, and the first was great, so that really says a lot about a series, that it can improve that much from an already good point. The first thing I'd like to talk about was the speed of the season. I was very nervous about adding however many characters they added, at least Punisher, Elektra, and a few other characters were added. We knew that the Hand was going to be in there as well, and that's just kind of strange for a 13 episode series. We don't have a lot of different series to compare it to at this point, but for a 13 episode thing, we've only had one or two villains, and only really one major one in the last Jessica Jones series and Daredevil series. And so adding all of these villains and anti-heroes was definitely a big step up, and I worried that it would be crowded, which to some extent it was, but in a very good way. I think that the pacing issues that they had in the first season, while it was caused in part by the explanation of the origin story, which I may have been a little bit impatient with knowing the backstory already, I think that they really, the new characters really allowed it to progress at a much faster and much more natural rate. And I think that was definitely a big part. Another big part was the characters themselves. Punisher, John Bernthal, whatever, however you say his name, he did a fantastic job as the Punisher. And it's not easy to do a good job at that. He really had kind of a struggle, because you have to paint him as someone who is violent and methodical and undoubtedly a murderer, but you also have to paint him in a way that makes him relatable. Now, in Deadpool, they did that via humor. In Punisher, or in Daredevil, rather, they had Punisher become sort of the antithesis of Matt Murdock. Um, as you could see over the season, which was something I admired so much, is that as Daredevil grew and grew to accept the violent part of his job as a vigilante and the violent side of him as a person, he began to accept more and more what Punisher was doing. And through that, the audience could kind of see how the Punisher, what he was doing was wrong, definitely, in a sense, but it was also understandable, and I think that's a really important thing to show. Another aspect was Elektra, who was very comic accurate, and although I wasn't a huge fan of the suit, I would have liked to see a little bit more red, like the dress she was wearing in the infiltration of the tower, the hand tower. I think she definitely did a good job as well, and it was very along the lines of her comic counterpart. She definitely complimented Matt as well, and what was I gonna say? I apologize. It's harder when there's only one, but she was very lively and very, very much a compliment to Matt's character. And she definitely got him to explore a side of himself that he had been a little afraid to explore, and that led into the Punisher contrast between Daredevil and the Punisher, and the eventual reconciliation between the two. But between Elektra and Punisher and even Daredevil, and honestly a little bit of Ghost Rider with those hallway scenes in season 3, or in episode 3 rather, they've had a great run of re-establishing characters who have been ruined in film. Which is why I would like to present to you a little thought of mine. Now, keep an open mind when you hear this, because it will blow your mind if you're not too careful. Right? Are you ready? 3 words. Netflix presents Green Lantern. That's right. That is 4 words. You got me there. But what if they took Green Lantern, a ruined franchise, and put him in Netflix as a Marvel original series? I know, it's a stretch, but they could get it done. I think it would be great. I think the crossover potentials are endless, and I am absolutely an idiot for saying that. I apologize, and please forgive me. Back to the characters, I'd like to say that Foggy's getting a little bit on my nerves this season. He's been great. His portrayal is good, and he did have some redeeming scenes, such as the hospital fight breakup scene, but he's become sort of the Felicity of the Daredevil team. The whiner, the complainer, the one who doesn't get along with anyone. And I understand that to a point, but it's getting a little tiring. Karen, on the other hand, she's become less Karen-y than the first issue, or the first series, and she's definitely gotten better. I grew to love her character over the time here, though I didn't much enjoy her as a love interest. But one person from the first season that I really liked was Wilson Fisk. I wasn't expecting him to reappear, though I probably should have been. But he was a great addition, and his interaction with Punisher was absolutely one of the coolest scenes I've seen in in a TV series, a comic-based TV series. Um, he had a great sort of storyline in that prison, and it was interesting to see how that storyline tied together with Punisher's sort of courtroom storyline, another storyline that I really enjoyed. Um, and there were two real distinct storylines in this season that I appreciated, which was one, the Punisher and Fisk storyline, and two, the Hand and Elektra storyline. And I think they balanced those two very well. Um, well, the Punisher storyline went from the beginning to about the middle, um, though there were some spots at the end where it continued. It didn't really flourish at that point. It really hit its peak at about the 7th episode. Some could say even the 3rd or 4th episode, where Punisher gave his speech at the graveyard, which almost made me cry, honestly. That was a great speech. But then there was the Elektra and Hand storyline that lasted from the middle to the end. And I think it was smart of them to do that, and though it got confusing at times, it provided a lot more action and necessary action. Now, in terms of the future as it stands, I can't wait to see how Daredevil interacts with the other series going on. There were a few mentions of Jessica Jones, and there were even some characters from Jessica Jones that interacted with characters in Daredevil, and I'm excited to see that happening, because in Marvel's show universe, we haven't seen many crossovers as of yet, so that's exciting to see. And I'm also excited to see where the Elektra storyline goes. She had a great storyline. Her death was both necessary and enjoyable to watch, as cruel and heartless as that sounds. It was really emotionally charged, and I think it was built up pretty nicely. I mean, as soon as they started talking about their future plans, I knew that she was going to kick the bucket sometime soon, which was a little disappointing to have that side knowledge beforehand. But in the end, they pulled it off well, and I'm excited to see what happens to her. Any other points about it? I did want to mention that I'm excited for the Defenders series, but I have a few reservations. Obviously, I haven't seen Iron Fist in action yet, but all of the characters so far have been great. I just worry that with 4 characters who have been so strongly developed in each of their own shows, and so strongly developed as personalities who have hot heads and aren't really the best at working with others, as we can see with the little Nelson and Murdoch fiasco that happens. There isn't a lot of potential that I see for a good, solid team up. The only real chemistry so far is between Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, and those two could easily go against Daredevil, at least. I hope it shall be good, but I'm very wary of how it shall end up. So we're just about reaching the 15-minute mark, and so hello and welcome to those who have skipped to the 15-minute mark. Just finished up on our discussion about Daredevil, and we're gonna move on to my reads of the week. So starting off this week was the Inhumans issue 7. I forget the title at the moment. I believe it's Uncanny Inhumans. Whichever one involves the silent room or the quiet room. This has been an interesting storyline so far, and I like the idea of a club run specifically by superheroes for at least superhero types. And the conflicts between them have been interesting. I love seeing Black Bolt because he's always got that those funny moments or those intimidating moments that somehow they manage with his lack of speech. Specifically, one that happened earlier in the series, which was him snuffing out a candle in front of the Human Torch. I think that was a great scene, great imagery. And the story's really continued strong for the whole series, and it's got some good art, some good concepts. I always like to see the other institutions that have been brought about as a result of superheroes. You don't think about them a lot, but like in Ant-Man with the superhero retirement community, and now in this Inhuman series with the club that's exclusive for superhero types. I think that's an aspect that would grow naturally from a superhero filled environment. And it's really interesting to read about and also watch. I'd like to touch on this for a moment, though it's not a read of the week. I've watched Powers, which is a series on, I believe, the PlayStation Network, which I didn't even know existed until earlier this week. It really centers around a comic by Brian Michael Bendis that basically details the life of a depowered superhero who is a part of a police department. And it also approaches the same topics, like what if superheroes actually were real? What would happen in the whole culture as a result, rather than just from a superhero's point of view? And that's great. A second comic that I read this week was Death of Captain America, issue 1. Now, I've already read the Civil War storyline, and I touched on the Death of Captain America before, but I decided to revisit this comic because of, obviously, the new movie coming out, and also my own interest in Bucky Barnes as a character. And this was a very interesting and compelling first issue that did truly get me hooked. I love the Winter Soldier, and I am very interested in seeing how he developed as a character from sort of the Captain America origin and the Soviet spy origin, if you will, reboot. So that was great to see, and it had some fantastic art, some good moments with Wolverine, and I'm excited to read onwards in it. And that brings us to our last segment, which is the question of the week. Would you believe it? We ask questions and you have to answer them. That's not how it works at all. You write in and we will answer your questions, comments, or concerns. Now, to write in, you can either email us at thecomicbooknetwork@gmail.com. That's THECOMICBOOKNETWORK Or, the easier way, you may visit our site, which is thecomicbooknetwork.weebly, WEEBLY.com. And there you can submit the question directly, not using email, but rather a submission form. If you click the Contact Us tab, if you want to just watch the latest episodes, feel free to do that as well. It's sort of an all-encompassing website, and we're very lucky to have it. We hope you guys enjoy it and take full advantage of it. It has some great resources, but that's definitely the easiest way to contact us and listen to our episodes. So feel free to contact us there. In the meanwhile, here is the question. This is addressed to both me and Jeffrey, so we will be letting Jeffrey, whatever you'd like to do, Jeffrey. If you want to do a little worm dance, I don't think you can talk, I don't think you can, do sign language, but if you want to just flop on the floor, feel free to do so. I'm sure your wheelchair will let you right out. So today's question is, what is your dream character team-up? And I've been thinking about this for a while, and I know it won't necessarily be the most logical, but it would definitely be an entertaining team-up to see Kamala Khan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but Kamala Khan, I think her and Karnak should team up, just for the humor of it. Because Karnak is essentially a depressing, tired, old man who sees the futility and the flaw in everything, whereas Kamala is traditionally portrayed as very positive, very young, and naive in a way, and just the interaction between the two, I feel, would be insanely gold. And that would be a pretty strange series. Now, I worry that if they were to team up, it would damage sort of Karnak's reputation as a cold-blooded killer, or whatever you want to call him. But I think in the end it could be pretty entertaining if they find a good balance between Karnak's sarcasm and Kamala's innocence, if that makes any sense. So that about brings our episode to a close. I hope you enjoyed. We will be back with both me and my esteemed colleague, Jeffrey, and then our rodent slave, Ethan. So I hope you tune in next time. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll be getting to 10 next week, so that'll be pretty exciting. I don't know if we'll do anything for that, but hopefully you'll enjoy. Remember, you can contact us at thecomicbooknetwork@gmail.com or visit our website to see the links to every single one of our media outlets. Please enjoy, and thank you for listening.